This morning, the Princess of Wales back on the global stage. Kate's first international trip since her cancer recovery, stepping out on her own, a research trip of sorts, learning about a cause she cares deeply about.
Thousands of people have packed the square. People are hanging out the windows, and you can see her right here, meeting some of her littlest fans.
The orchestra had already tuned its instruments. Hundreds of invited guests were moving beneath the palace chandeliers, and the first royal cars were only minutes away. Then Catherine saw three unfamiliar figures standing inside the official guest line. She stopped walking. Her expression hardened. Within moments, the Princess of Wales issued an order nobody expected. The palace concert was cancelled, the doors were closed, and every guest was told to leave without explanation. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine had spent months preparing the palace concert, created to celebrate young British musicians and present the monarchy as united. As principal royal host, the evening carried her responsibility and the palace name. William was expected before the opening performance, and every detail had been checked very carefully. Security officers had approved the printed guest list that morning. The palace events office, the team managing invitations, seating, and access, had assured her that every attendee was cleared. One unapproved guest could turn the charitable celebration into a private political encounter. Catherine believed the hall was protected from that danger. Then she recognized the three figures. They were members of Harry's private team. Harry himself was nowhere in sight, but that absence made the discovery more unsettling. His representatives had entered a deeply personal royal occasion without approaching Catherine or William directly. They stood inside the official line as though their presence had been expected. And that detail told her this was not a misunderstanding. William found Catherine gripping the concert program with both hands. He asked whether she was certain. She said she would not host a celebration while an unexplained operation unfolded inside her own event. The prince understood the cost. Canceling would disappoint performers, embarrass the palace, and provoke questions nationwide. Continuing could surrender control of the evening. An aide hurried toward them with a revised guest document. The three names had been added less than 40 minutes before the doors opened. Worse, the alteration carried an internal authorization code, a secure approval mark normally used by senior palace offices to permit sensitive changes. Someone powerful had cleared Harry's team. As guests were escorted away, Catherine saw Charles at the far end of the corridor holding a sealed folder. The king did not look confused. He did not ask what had happened. He looked as though he had been waiting. The concert had been silenced, but the greater shock was only beginning. Catherine now had to discover whether Harry's team had crossed the threshold alone, or whether someone inside the family had opened the door for them. To the departing guests, the cancellation appeared sudden and inexplicable. To Catherine, it felt painfully personal. The three people she had seen were not random spectators seeking a glimpse of royal ceremony. They were trusted members of Harry's professional circle individuals, connected to communications, legal planning, and private negotiations. Their presence transformed a disrupted concert into something far more dangerous, a message aimed directly at the future king and queen. Catherine had spent months rebuilding confidence around major palace engagements. Years of family conflict had turned even simple appearances into tests of loyalty, control, and public trust. This concert was supposed to prove that the monarchy could still create something calm and united. As Princess of Wales, a title given to the wife of the direct heir to the throne, she carried more than ceremonial duty. She carried the burden of showing that the future could feel stable again. Harry remained far from palace life, yet his unresolved relationship with William still shaped every decision involving access, security, publicity, and the Sussexes' place near the crown. His absence had never ended the tension. It had only changed its form. Now his professional team had appeared inside an event connected directly to Catherine, and she understood how easily silence could be mistaken for permission. Catherine turned to William and told him the issue was not embarrassment. It was whether their boundaries meant anything at all. Allowing the representatives to stay would make her appear powerless at an event carrying her name. The prince wanted to protect his wife, but he also knew the cancellation could push his brother even farther away. He walked toward the window, loosened his cuff, and admitted that every road involving Harry now seemed to end in confrontation. A security officer then added another troubling detail. One member of Harry's team had carried a slim document case instead of an evening program. The officer had watched the man repeatedly check the royal arrival entrance, not the stage, as though he were waiting for someone specific. Another request deepened the suspicion. One representative had asked to sit near the private reception room where Catherine and William were scheduled to meet sponsors after the performance. The room was meant for short conversations with invited supporters, not private negotiations. Their seating request suggested they expected access after the concert ended. Catherine sat alone for several seconds, facing rows of empty chairs. When William approached, she admitted that canceling the evening felt cruel. Letting it continue, however, would have felt like surrender. Then a junior courtier broke the silence through a documented account given to the palace security review. Harry's representatives had not requested invitations themselves. Their names had been submitted together by someone inside the royal household. Catherine could endure criticism for canceling a concert, but she could not ignore the possibility that the intrusion had been arranged from within. And one earlier encounter now began to look like the moment everything had been set in motion. The cancellation did not begin at the palace doors. Its true origin lay 6 weeks earlier, during a smaller reception at Windsor, where Smiles had concealed a private struggle over access and influence. Catherine had believed the disagreement ended that night. Now, as she examined the altered guest list, she understood that the encounter had not been forgotten. It had simply moved underground, gathering pressure until it erupted beneath the chandeliers of her concert. Charles had hosted the Windsor reception for charitable advisors and representatives connected to royal youth initiatives. A royal initiative was a program supported by members of the monarchy to promote public causes, raise awareness, or direct charitable work. Catherine attended because several of those projects were expected to become part of her future program, giving her a direct role in shaping how the next generation of royal service would look. Harry's name appeared in the briefing notes that evening. The document, prepared to guide royal guests through the event, mentioned a proposed overseas initiative, even though the Duke held no formal role in Catherine's planning. She noticed it immediately. His name did not belong there, yet nobody offered a clear explanation for why it had been included. A senior advisor approached Catherine before the reception ended. He asked her privately to allow 2 members of Harry's team into a future palace event so they could deliver a confidential proposal directly to William. The request sounded calm, but the method carried pressure. It would place the prince in front of representatives he had never agreed to meet. Catherine refused. She explained that no professional intermediary should reach her husband through a public engagement, where duty and courtesy could be used to trap him into listening. The advisor pressed again, suggesting that William might respond differently if the meeting happened naturally. She placed her untouched glass on a nearby table and walked away. William later told Catherine she had made the right decision. His voice, however, carried exhaustion rather than relief. The future king admitted that every refusal frightened him, because Harry might see it not as a boundary, but as one more final rejection from his brother. Catherine then noticed the advisor speaking privately with an official from Charles's household. The king's household was the group of senior staff responsible for supporting his duties, correspondence, and official decisions. Their conversation stopped the moment she entered the corridor. The hidden proposal now became clearer. It concerned a controlled return to royal cooperation, allowing Harry's representatives to rebuild institutional links without requiring the Duke to appear publicly. Catherine remembered warning William that someone would eventually test the boundary they had established. He squeezed her hand but offered no answer. Now the revised concert list proved that test had arrived. Catherine wanted the senior advisor brought before her immediately. What had once been an uncomfortable request was now a direct breach of trust, and she was no longer willing to communicate through memoranda, intermediaries, or carefully softened palace language. The confrontation took place in a narrow private room behind the abandoned concert hall. No musicians remained. No guests could hear through the heavy doors. Catherine stood at one end of a polished table, while the senior advisor who had approached her at Windsor waited at the other. Between them lay the altered guest list. She did not raise her voice. She simply placed one finger beside the 3 names and demanded the truth. Catherine asked William to remain beside her, not as the future king, but as her husband, and the man Harry's representatives had apparently come to reach. The future king was the person expected to inherit the throne, but in that moment, rank mattered less than betrayal. The prince stayed close, watching the advisor carefully while his wife waited for an answer. The senior advisor insisted that the three guests had been admitted to prevent another public disagreement with Harry's office. He described the plan as an opportunity for quiet reconciliation, a private attempt to repair family relations without cameras, statements, or formal meetings. Catherine listened without interrupting, but her silence only made the room feel more dangerous. Catherine finally asked why reconciliation required deception. The advisor called the cancellation an overreaction and argued that the guests could have been removed quietly after the performance. She pushed the revised list across the table and told him that secretly changing her event had destroyed every safer option before she even entered the room. William stepped forward. He demanded to know whether Harry had been told the meeting was approved. The advisor hesitated, then admitted that the Duke's team may have believed the prince had already agreed to receive the proposal. William's anger broke through at once. Someone had used his name, his brother's hope, and Catherine's concert to force a meeting none of them had authorized. The advisor reached for the document, but Catherine placed her palm over it. "Who authorized these names?" she asked. The silence lasted too long. Then the answer came. The request had passed through Charles's private office. That office was the small group of trusted staff handling the king's most sensitive decisions and correspondence. The advisor claimed Charles had approved only the idea of a future conversation, not the secret placement of Harry's team inside the guest line. A handwritten note attached to the list made that defense harder to accept. It read, "Family access, no public record." An official event archive was the permanent palace record of approved guests, meetings, and decisions. Someone had clearly intended the contact to happen without leaving a visible trail. William turned away and rested both hands against the table. Catherine watched his face change as he understood the cost. Charles had tried to repair one fractured relationship by placing unbearable pressure on another. Catherine ordered the advisor to leave. Then she told William they would confront the king before the palace could soften, delay, or reshape the truth. The altered list had exposed the mechanism, but not the motive. And Catherine now faced the most dangerous question of the evening. How far had Charles been willing to go to bring Harry back within reach? Charles had not expected Catherine to confront him before the palace issued an explanation. When she entered his private sitting room with William beside her, the king was still holding the sealed folder seen earlier in the corridor. He looked from his son to his daughter-in-law and understood immediately that the hidden arrangement had failed. Yet instead of apologizing, the monarch asked one devastating question. Did the entire evening truly have to be destroyed? Catherine did not hesitate. She told Charles that he had turned her charitable event into a trap and used its dignity to hide a private negotiation. A charitable event was a formal gathering created to support a public cause, not a setting for secret family pressure. She said canceling the concert had caused pain, but allowing the deception to continue would have caused something worse: the collapse of trust. Charles believed the monarchy could not survive a permanent war between William and Harry. He had quietly encouraged limited channels through which the brothers' representatives might exchange ideas without creating another public spectacle. The king saw the concert as neutral ground, a cultural evening where private contact could happen after the performance, without forcing either son into a formal family meeting. William heard only one thing: his father had planned around him instead of speaking to him. The prince accused Charles of treating him like an obstacle rather than a son, someone whose resistance had to be managed instead of respected. The monarch answered that William's refusal to engage had left him searching for any remaining opening between the brothers. Catherine pushed back at once. She told Charles that reconciliation built on false permission was not reconciliation at all. The king reminded her that Harry remained his son, and he feared the distance between the brothers was becoming permanent. She replied that fear did not give anyone the right to use her name, her work, or her guests as leverage. Charles sat down heavily and placed the sealed folder beside him. For several seconds, he stared at it without speaking. The king no longer looked like a sovereign defending a careful plan. He looked like a father watching his family separate beyond repair. The folder contained a proposed framework for Harry's limited return to selected royal initiatives. A framework was a written plan setting out how private briefings, controlled appearances, and future cooperation might happen step by step. Charles admitted that Harry knew his representatives could attend a palace occasion, but insisted the Duke had never been told which event would be chosen. Catherine made her position final. Nobody, not even the monarch, would use her responsibilities to manufacture access to William. Charles understood that she was not seeking approval. She was drawing a boundary. Before leaving, William asked whether Harry's team had brought the proposed framework with them. Charles did not answer. His silence answered for him. The concert was no longer merely a cancelled celebration. It had become the failed opening move in a plan for Harry's return, and the document carried by his team was about to ignite consequences throughout the palace. By midnight, the palace had divided into competing rooms of anger, fear, and damage control. Staff drafted explanations that Catherine refused to approve. Musicians waited for answers that no one could give. Harry's team remained inside a security office while their document case was examined. And beyond the closed gates, guests were already sharing fragments of the evening. The cancelled concert had lasted only minutes as an event, but its consequences were spreading with extraordinary speed. Catherine rejected the first official explanation within seconds. The Palace Communications Office, the department responsible for public statements and media responses, wanted to blame a technical emergency. She refused because that story would place suspicion on the performers, organizers, and security officers who had done nothing wrong. Protecting the monarchy through a false excuse would only create another betrayal. William ordered an internal review of every late change made to the guest list. An internal review was a formal palace investigation, used to trace decisions, instructions, and responsibility. The prince demanded to know who produced the revised document, who approved the secure authorization code, and who told guards to admit Harry's representatives without Catherine's knowledge. Catherine then telephoned the young conductor personally. She apologized without revealing the family dispute, but her voice weakened when he admitted that the musicians believed the cancellation reflected disappointment in their performance. She told him that none of them had failed. The conductor thanked her, yet the pain in his response followed her long after the call ended. Charles felt publicly undermined by the decision. Catherine felt privately betrayed by his plan. The king believed he had acted to protect the crown from a permanent family rupture, while she believed he had protected the institution by sacrificing her consent. Their conflict was no longer about one evening. It was about whether royal duty gave anyone permission to bypass trust. Harry received the news during a private recorded call with one of his representatives. He remained silent before asking whether William had read the proposal. When told the document never reached his brother, the Duke ended the conversation without another word. His silence carried anger, humiliation, and the fear that the failed plan had made reconciliation even less likely. The review soon uncovered a message from a palace official. It stated that Catherine would be unlikely to disrupt the program once guests were seated. The sentence revealed the entire strategy. Someone had assumed her discipline, kindness, and loyalty to the performers would prevent her from resisting. Catherine had proved them wrong. Alone in a side room, she removed her event badge and placed it beside the abandoned program. William entered and sat beside her. She admitted that she could still hear the musicians rehearsing in her mind. The prince took her hand and said the next decision could not belong to advisors, offices, or hidden plans. It belonged to two brothers. The machinery of reconciliation had collapsed, leaving William and Harry with nowhere left to hide, and before dawn, one of them would finally make direct contact with the other. There were no advisors on the call, no secretaries prepared language, and no palace official remained close enough to interrupt. William stood alone in the darkened concert hall, while Harry answered from thousands of miles away. For the first time in months, the brothers spoke without a document, a public statement, or a third party carrying their words. The silence between them was longer than the greeting, and more honest than anything the palace had arranged. William had called after discovering that Harry received an incomplete account of the proposed meeting. The Duke believed his brother already expected the representatives and had quietly agreed to receive their document. A proposed framework was a written plan setting out how future contact, briefings, and limited royal cooperation might happen. Harry said he authorized delivery, only because his team promised nothing would occur without William's consent. William accused Harry of allowing professional teams to operate inside a family wound. He said advisors could organize schedules and prepare documents, but they could not understand what years of disappointment had done to two brothers. The Duke answered that direct approaches had repeatedly failed. Every message seemed to disappear into offices, delays, or silence, leaving him convinced that formal channels were the only path still open. Harry then asked the question he had been carrying since the concert ended. Had Catherine canceled the evening because she saw his name as a threat? William's reply came immediately. She had not stopped the music because of Harry. She had stopped it because strangers entered her event through deception and expected her sense of duty to keep her silent. William moved toward the unused conductor's stand as he described Catherine calling the young musicians. He told Harry how her voice weakened when the conductor admitted they believed their performance had caused the cancellation. The Duke remained quiet. For the first time, the failed plan was no longer about royal access. It was about innocent people carrying the pain of a family conflict they had never created. Harry finally admitted that he had not known the palace concert would be used. He said he would never have approved turning an evening for young performers into leverage against William or Catherine. The prince accepted that Charles had acted from fear rather than cruelty, but he insisted that a frightened father could still make a damaging choice. The truth changed everything. Harry agreed to withdraw the framework and remove those representatives from future palace negotiations. William promised that every future response would come directly from him, even when the answer was difficult or final. Before ending the call, Harry asked his brother to tell Catherine that she had been right to cancel. William closed his eyes, thanked him, and finally breathed freely. For one night, honesty had succeeded where strategy failed. Yet dawn would bring a public spectacle, and the empty stage had already become an image the world was determined to interpret. At sunrise, one photograph defined the crisis. Hundreds of gilded chairs facing an illuminated stage with no musicians, no audience, and a single abandoned program resting in the front row. The image appeared before the palace released a statement. Within an hour, broadcasters were calling the cancellation unprecedented. Newspapers were questioning Catherine's authority, and crowds were forming near the gates. Yet as the reason emerged, the meaning of the empty hall began to change. Confusion moved faster than truth. Early reports confirmed that guests had been removed without any medical warning, security threat, or technical failure. That absence mattered because it left the public with no simple explanation for why a major royal engagement had collapsed. A royal engagement was an official event attended or hosted by a member of the monarchy, carrying both public responsibility and personal authority. The palace eventually confirmed that Catherine had canceled the concert after discovering unauthorized last-minute additions to the guest arrangements. The statement protected the identities of those involved, but it made one fact clear. The princess had acted because her control over the event had been bypassed. Outside Buckingham Palace, the public reaction became impossible to contain. A crowd gathered beside the main gates as a broadcaster held up the morning edition of the London Chronicle. Its front page carried a photograph of the abandoned hall beneath 4 words that dominated the national conversation: Catherine stops the music. A royal commentator sharpened the debate during a live breakfast broadcast. She described the cancellation as the night the princess chose consent over ceremony. The phrase spread quickly because it transformed Catherine's decision from a dramatic interruption into a question of principle. Had she destroyed a public celebration, or had she refused to let duty become a weapon against her? Critics accused Catherine of humiliating young performers and wasting months of work. Supporters argued that continuing would have rewarded those who secretly altered a royal event to force private access. William remained beside her as the argument grew harsher, reminding her that the damage began with deception, not with her refusal to accept it. Catherine watched footage of disappointed musicians leaving with their instruments and visibly struggled. The prince told her that protecting a boundary could still hurt innocent people, but that pain did not make the boundary wrong. She heard him, yet the faces of the performers remained the hardest part to bear. Harry then issued a brief written message through his official communications office. The Duke accepted that his team should never have entered without Catherine's explicit knowledge. His statement ended claims that the cancellation had been a deliberate personal attack. Charles followed with a decisive palace order. Every late guest list change would now require direct approval from the named royal host, formally recognizing that Catherine's authority had been ignored. By evening, and public anger had begun to soften. But Catherine still had to face the musicians, and only that meeting could decide whether the cancelled concert would be remembered as destruction or protection. 3 days later, Catherine entered the rehearsal room without photographers, advisors, or a prepared palace speech. The musicians stopped playing as she approached. She did not defend the cancellation or blame the king, Harry, or the officials who had changed the guest list. She simply apologized for the pain caused to people who had prepared for months. Then she made a promise. The concert would return, Every performer would be invited back, and no hidden agenda would enter with them. Catherine spoke directly to the conductor and the young performers. She explained that their concert had been in danger of becoming the setting for an unauthorized family negotiation, one arranged without her knowledge or William's consent. A royal negotiation was a private attempt to settle family or institutional disputes involving members of the monarchy. She had stopped the evening because their music deserved better than becoming background noise to a hidden confrontation. The palace rescheduled the complete program for the following month. Every original piece remained, every charitable purpose was protected, and every young performer received a new invitation. The conductor told Catherine that the musicians had first believed they were being rejected. Now, he said, they understood that she had protected their work from becoming a footnote in a royal crisis. Catherine's composure finally broke when the youngest violinist handed her the program left behind on the cancelled night. She pressed it against her chest and thanked the orchestra. The violinist told her they would be ready when the doors opened again. For the first time since the cancellation, the princess allowed herself to believe the evening could be restored. Charles accepted responsibility through a documented private statement shared with Catherine and William. The king admitted that he had approved an informal reconciliation channel without securing her consent. He ended the secret initiative and promised that no royal event would again be used to force private contact between family members. Harry withdrew the proposed document, replaced the members of his negotiating team, and honored his agreement to communicate with William directly. The Duke's decision did not erase years of pain, but it ended the methods that had made reconciliation feel like an ambush. The prince, in return, kept the direct channel open. William told Catherine that her refusal had exposed a dangerous assumption. Everyone believed she would remain silent to protect appearances. He made clear that her authority would stand beside his, never beneath it. On the rescheduled evening, Catherine waited until every guest had taken a seat before joining William. The conductor raised his baton and looked toward her. She gave one calm nod. This time, the music began. The cancellation had not been vengeance against Harry, rebellion against Charles, or disrespect for tradition. It was Catherine's refusal to let reconciliation become coercion. She protected the performers, defended her marriage, and proved that royal unity could never be manufactured through secrecy. The crown emerged bruised but clearer. Charles learned that good intentions could not excuse manipulation. Harry learned that access required honesty. William learned that silence allowed others to control the conversation. Catherine proved that duty was not passive obedience. Sometimes, duty meant having the courage to stop the ceremony when the principles behind it had already been violated. The first concert ended before a single note was heard, but the second began with something the palace had almost lost entirely. Trust, freely given, boundaries openly respected, and a future no longer arranged behind closed doors. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.